People who work at super fancy hotels, what kind of stuff happens that management doesn't want people to know about? It's pretty common to have a dead guest. There's a standard procedure for it, and we take care of it quietly. I once waited for an elevator in a hotel early in the morning. The doors opened, and instinctively I started to get on, but it was filled with EMTs, a stretcher, and the hotel's general manager. He politely suggested I wait for the next one. The patient had an oxygen mask on, with some tubes leading somewhere. Later, I noticed that the ambulance pulled off without the siren and waited for a stoplight. I suspected he was dead all along, and they just made it look like he was unconscious and receiving treatment. I used to work as an EMT as well as in a hotel. I've seen both worlds, lol, but no lights and sirens doesn't necessarily mean the patient is dead. It could mean the emergency is over, meaning adequate care is being provided by qualified medical help. And going code 3 to the hospital doesn't bring any greater reward than just going code 1. Then what's code 2? Code 3 is lights and siren. Code 2 is lights only. Code 1 is as soon as possible. At least in many districts, it is. I have an interesting one. We know criminal enterprises have funded casinos in the past. I worked at Revel Casino, now Ocean, in Atlantic City before and after its opening. One thing they kept mentioning in our onboarding was that the triads were funding the casino. I thought it was super strange that these execs were just openly telling brand new hires. Human trafficking became so bad that the company gave us training on looking out for it. There is policy in place to knowingly cause you issue and pacify UX, routine elevator maintenance, during a busy period because the tech travels around and it is now or 3 weeks from now. The elevator did not have unforeseen issues. Professionals are the worst guests for partying and puking everywhere and pissing in halls and breaking things and fucking in public areas. Lawyers, doctors, and teachers, in that order. Whenever they had conventions, extra staff were on the next day for dealing with damage. Edit. I forgot to add overbooking as an example of dicking with people. We assumed not everyone would show or a 100% occupancy night and booked more than we could hold. The rare time we did have everyone show. Here's free stuff and a ride to X hotel. We even had friendly agreements with neighboring competition to let each other know when we could take each other's overbookings. Can definitely confirm the second part of this. Used to work at a high-end lodge that hosted holiday parties, fancy dinners for software giants, and one exec peed all over a room. $13,000 in damage. We regularly had rich guys pull up in their Lamborghinis with a hooker. My favorite was the couple. We had to essentially evict from their room due to smell and noise complaints. When we got in, there were dozens of designer shoeboxes and coke residue everywhere. The woman left with her foot hanging out the window as they drove away. Rich people are weird. Oof. Here I am feeling bad that I forgot to pick a towel up off the bathroom floor before checking out. Worked at the Luxor Casino in Vegas while I waited to go to film school. People piss and masturbate under the gambling tables. I've heard casinos keep many slot machine seats in the back because of how often elderly slot jockeys choose to soil themselves instead of going to the bathroom and potentially losing their machine. True. Edit. Damn. Starting to think casinos should just put slot machines in each toilet stall. We had one of the bald ones beat up a hooker behind the building once. That was before I worked there, but people still talked about it. We had an entire wing of the hotel infested with bedbugs. They just moved through the walls from one room to the next. We waged a war of attrition that took years and cost a lot of money. But we never stopped renting the rooms. Sometimes drug addicts have money. Or maybe better said, sometimes people with a lot of money have drug addictions. So maybe once a year or so you would have someone move in and then end up staying 4 months, and you didn't know it was a problem until it was a problem. One day, there's suddenly a lot of police cars in the parking lot, and it's something we're just not supposed to talk about and pretend never happened. We had one old guy though who was rich, divorced several times over. He just retired in the hotel. He had a room on the ground level right around the corner from the hotel bar. I don't know what he paid for it, but it wasn't cheap, and he furnished his own room. Everyone on staff knew his habits, knew his drink, knew when to leave him alone when he wanted to chat. The funniest thing was, after he passed, he had pre-booked his memorial at a totally different hotel. He liked his privacy, I guess. Rip Hal. Well, I don't anymore, but when I did, I was have a lot of sex with the corporate women who would be staying over, or were there for Christmas parties, that sort of thing, without fail. Anytime I was working the after-hours bar, I was getting some women sitting at the bar and chatting me up. I had sex with more 40-year-old women when I was 20 than I've had since becoming 40. Just an absolute shag fest when I was working. I was the night porter on night shift. We had the same thing with single, middle-aged women needing light bulbs changed at 2 a.m. About 1/2 of the time, they were more interested in my bulge than the bulb. I made a lot of extra cash in tips. Holy shit, was I a prostitute? You're a hooker, Harry. If you hear the phrase little friends over a radio, that means bedbugs. They can be unfortunately popular locations for suicides. Some individuals choose a hotel as a place to have a final meal, enjoy some entertainment, and pass away in the comfort provided by the accommodations. They may feel reassured knowing that someone will discover their body rather than being left unnoticed for an extended period of time in their own home. One thing, actually, most people who do this do so to avoid a loved one finding them. This is the same reason why so many do it in their cars. We turn a blind eye to drug dealers and prostitutes more often than you think. They hardly complain and usually prepay huge bonds happily. Also, we don't give a shit if you're having an affair. When I worked at a nice hotel, the affair one was brought up in training. Never mention a person being regular, and doubly don't mention anything about their partner, or the fact it's a different partner. That became a rule after some valet basically kick-started a very nasty divorce with a wealthy guest. This is a similar concept in Michelin dining. Some repeat guest will ask not to be acknowledged when they have different guests with them. My mom used to work as a cleaner in a fancy hotel. She actually ended up quitting because of how disgusted she was that 99.999% of the bedding, towels, etc. never got washed. She said there's such a time pressure to get X amount of rooms done in X amount of time that many cleaners would just remake the beds and refold the towels. That's why I make sure to shit on everything so it gets cleaned. People spend thousands of dollars only to get drunk and show their whole ass to the point security gets involved to deal with their toddler-like behavior. When a housekeeper loses a key while cleaning and someone has to cancel the key because we don't know if some random person picked up the key and now has access to all guest rooms. Honestly, if staying at a hotel, always deadbolt door and use night latch for this reason, or if front desk issues a key to the wrong room, because both are a common issue. We take notes on your reservation profile. Everything from anniversary information to fav cocktails and foods. Add notes to pass along to other staff. My wife and I got married in 2009 and stayed a couple of nights in a hotel during our honeymoon. Cut to 10 years later, we decided to do our honeymoon for our 10th anniversary. So we stayed in all the same hotels, etc. Big shout out to Hotel Andra in Seattle. When we got to our room, we had flowers and a bottle of champagne with a note expressing how thrilled they were that we were spending our 10th anniversary there, just as we did for our honeymoon as newlyweds. Turns out, when we booked for our honeymoon, we told them, and they were able to figure out 10 years later that we were there for our anniversary. If we redo this trip a third time, I will 100% make it a point to stay there again if it's still open. I want to know what notes they had from my honeymoon. When I got a really bad stomach virus, very pale, only eats plain toast and white rice, spends a lot of time in the bathroom. Vice did a good interview with hotel staff at certain high-end hotels. In one of the interviews, they claimed elites would rent out the entire hotel by offering a premium, and they would essentially have orgies throughout the entire hotel. I mean, not just elites. Many sex parties in hotels operate that way. They usually try to give the hotel a heads up, though, so they can block off an entire section. Vegas, old guys plus hooker, plus Viagra plus cocaine who rolls dead. This sounds like a decent retirement plan. The amount of sex toys left behind will blow your mind. Story time. I worked at a high-end boutique hotel for several years. That being said, it resides in a very small northern New England town, so staffing was limited. We often had young people for whom it was their first job. One day, I get a radio call from one of our housekeepers, 15-16 years old, saying that she found some stuff in a room and didn't know what to do. I walk up to the room and she shows me handcuffs connected to the bed frame, a ball gag, and a strap-on dildo. All she asked is, "What's it for?" I quickly ushered her out of the room and placed a "Do Not Disturb" sign onto the handle of the door. Used to work as a bellhop, primarily in room service, at the fanciest hotel in Copenhagen. At the time, all rooms of a certain size had a complete basket of fruits, chocolate, and a bottle of reasonable champagne waiting. The guests almost never opened the champagne, and since it was unaccounted for, I had the most outrageously well-stocked wall of champagne of anyone I knew as a young man. Went to see The Matrix when it came out. Me and my buddy both enjoyed a bottle each with that. Porn shoots. In addition, you know those carpets and upholstery ain't getting cleaned. Whatever you do, never bring a UV light to any hotel room. You're better off just not knowing at all. I only work as a housekeeper at a regular 4-star hotel, but probably about 25% of people either bleed or leave shit stains on the beds. It is truly atrocious how disgusting people are, especially when they know someone else is cleaning it up. Even the wealthier guests. In addition, the best tippers are the cleanest people. If someone fully shit on the bed and used towels to wipe, left cum on the shower door, drank heavily and puked on the carpet in multiple places, and clogged the toilet, that person will not tip at all. But the person who barely used the full bed and didn't use the shower at all and was super clean and polite, now that's a good tipper. Up until the school trip, when I was probably 17, I didn't even know to tip the housekeeping staff. My family never did it, and we had been to plenty of hotels. For this school trip, the teacher in charge reminded us on the bus, about 10 minutes before we arrived to the hotel, to please leave a tip for the housekeepers, and if we wanted to be sure, it got to the folks actually cleaning the room, to leave it under the pillow with a nice note. Front desk knows all the cool girls. We give them water on the way out and sometimes call them taxis. Management doesn't like us doing it, but escorts tip well. Most front desk staff receive training to recognize and help prevent sex trafficking. We had valet service at our hotel, and due to huge amounts of theft and break-ins by bums in our lots, we had to go through guests' cars and take everything of value out to hide stuff in our conference room, then put it all back in before we brought their car around. It was ridiculous, and we had to keep it under wraps. My friend was a dive instructor at a luxury resort on an island. One of the guests had a heart attack on the diving excursion before he got off the boat. The nearest doctor couldn't come for 24 hours, so they put the corpse in a guest room and cranked up the aircon. Of course, reception gave the key to the corpse room to a newly arrived honeymooning couple. They were greeted by the star of Weekend at Bernie's. Edit for clarity. Doctor was to sign off death, do formalities not to save life. Mauritius in the early 1990s. My brother worked in an upscale hotel in Southern California. A morbidly obese guest sat on the toilet in his room, shattered it, got his femoral artery slashed by a chunk of broken toilet, bled to death, and flooded his room when the water line ruptured. My brother found out about it from the maintenance guy, who found the body. Management made sure no other guest ever knew, including the guests in the room below the death scene, who called for maintenance because water was running down their wall. I'm not even obese, but you somehow unlocked a new fear of breaking a toilet or slashing an artery. Thanks for this. Worked a while back at a 5-star, 5-diamond resort in Vegas in room service. At that time, if you bought a bottle of booze for your room and didn't open it, including putting it out with your dishes, then it is resold, was very frequent. We had a customer find the overnight front desk receptionist in the closet passed out with something wrapped around his neck and his dick flopped out. Was some kink play he used to do. Guy still kept his job. I found a kidnapped baby in my hotel. That same group of people also were committing credit card fraud while shooting up heroin in our rooms. A well-known luxury hotel and resort chain keeps a database of you. They get pictures from the internet and stalk you to create a profile. They put what you ordered to eat, how many towels you needed, what drinks you liked, your kids' names and birthdays, address, phone number. Everyone working in the hotel has access to this database and can see your information. It is not all good stuff either. We know you were an asshole to Jen while you were staying in London. The one I was at had to remove cameras in the lobby because bigwig guys would bring their mistresses and no evidence was allowed to be recorded. Great, now it's your turn. Share your unique hotel experience in the comments below. Can't wait to read it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more content. See you soon.